You did everything right. You were patient. You were kind. You showed up. You made space. You loved them in the way you wished someone had loved you. And then, slowly, or maybe suddenly, they disappeared. Not physically, but emotionally. The warmth stopped. The messages got shorter. The distance grew, quietly and steadily, like a wall being built one brick at a time. And the most devastating part? You have no idea what you did wrong. Because the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. And that is exactly what makes this so hard to understand. Today I want to take you somewhere most relationship content never goes. Not into the advice, not into the what to text them territory. I want to take you underneath the surface, into the biology, the neuroscience, and the deeply buried psychology of why people pull away even when they're loved well. What you're about to hear is not what most people talk about. And by the end of this, you will understand something that most people spend years, sometimes decades, never figuring out. Let's start with the most important thing I can tell you, and it is the thing that will reframe everything else. When someone pulls away from love, real, genuine, patient love, it is almost never about the love not being enough. It is about the love being too much for a nervous system that was never taught how to receive it safely. Think about that for a second. The very thing you're offering, warmth, closeness, consistency, is the thing that feels dangerous to them. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because their brain, shaped by years of experiences you didn't cause, registers intimacy as a threat. And when the brain detects a threat, it does what it has always done. It protects. Here is the neuroscience of what is actually happening when someone goes cold on you. When the person who pulls away perceives emotional intensity, your frustration, your tears, your attempts to get closer, sometimes even just your silence, their autonomic nervous system activates what is called a dorsal vagal response. This is the freeze branch of the fight-flight-freeze system, and it does exactly what it sounds like. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for empathy, for perspective taking, for staying present in a hard conversation, goes partially offline. They are not choosing to be cold. Their biology is pulling the plug on emotional engagement because it has decided that the current situation is too threatening to stay in. And here is the part nobody tells you. The person sitting across from you, the one who looks completely calm, maybe even numb, maybe even indifferent, their heart is racing at over 100 beats per minute. John Gottman's research on couples found that when someone shuts down during conflict, though they appear on the outside to be devoid of emotion, they are internally flooded, adrenaline and cortisol surging through their body. They are not winning. They are drowning. And because their brain is in that flooded state, it literally cannot do what you're asking it to do. It cannot stay present. It cannot problem solve. It cannot feel empathy and respond to yours. The circuits are overloaded, and so they do the only thing that brings relief. They disappear. This is why arguing harder never works. This is why chasing them never closes the gap. Because you are trying to reach someone whose brain has temporarily lost the ability to be reached. Now let's talk about something that will genuinely disturb you if you've ever loved someone who runs, and it is this. The better things get between you, the more dangerous it can feel to them. Not less, more. Stability, real, consistent, loving stability, can actually be the very trigger that makes someone pull away. Research into what psychologists call self-sabotage describes it as a primitive part of the mind that has learned to associate good things with upcoming loss. Maybe growing up, joy was always quickly followed by disappointment. A moment of connection that suddenly ended. Warmth that was given and then taken without warning. A version of love that was inconsistent enough that the brain stopped trusting it. And so now, when something goes right, when the relationship feels safe, when a person is kind, when nothing is wrong, a more ancient part of the nervous system panics. It whispers, "Don't go higher than this. The fall will hurt too much." And so the person picks a fight over nothing. They go cold for a weekend. They say something they know will create distance, and then they act confused when it works. The sabotage is not random. It is a preemptive strike. Because in their experience, good things don't last. And the pain of watching something fall apart on its own is somehow worse than the pain of being the one who ends it. At least then, they control the timing. And for someone who grew up without any control at all, that control is the closest thing to safety they have ever known. And here is where it gets even more complex. Because it is not just the people who had cold or absent parents who struggle with this. Researchers have found that people with what is called fearful avoidant attachment, sometimes formed through inconsistent caregiving, sometimes through early experiences where closeness meant danger, can find intimacy genuinely threatening at a neurological level. Their brains learn to protect them by actually dialing down the chemical response to connection. They may not get the dopamine hit from closeness that most people feel. So when love comes toward them, real, consistent, generous love, their brain does not register it as reward. It registers it as risk. And there is something even more counterintuitive buried in the research. A study found that people with avoidant attachment don't just struggle with being excluded or ignored. They are actually threatened by too much inclusion. Being loved too openly, too warmly, too freely triggers their need for distance, because closeness for them was never safe. And the equation in their nervous system, an equation built in childhood and never since updated, says letting someone in means giving something up. It means losing yourself. It means becoming vulnerable to a pain you've already survived once and cannot afford to survive again. So what does that mean for you, the one who has been loving them well? It means you have been standing in front of someone, holding out something they desperately need, something they may even want, but something their body has been trained to flinch away from. You are triggering something ancient, something that has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with a version of the world they learned long before you ever arrived. Now I want to tell you about the thing that actually happens when they go quiet on you. Because there is a word for it, and that word is shame. Not anger, not indifference, shame. The withdrawing partner, in almost every case, is not pulling away because they feel nothing. They are pulling away because they feel too much. Specifically, they feel like they are failing you, like they are not enough, like they are disappointing the one person they most want not to disappoint. And shame, researchers tell us, is not just an emotion. It is a full-body event. It activates that same dorsal vagal system, makes it harder to speak, harder to think, harder to engage. And when a shame response hits, the only practiced move in the playbook is disappear, go silent, hope it passes. They are not shutting you out because you don't matter. They are shutting down because you matter so much that failing you feels like annihilation. This is what most people never say about the person who goes cold. They are almost never cold. They are overwhelmed. The withdrawal is not contempt. It is self-protection from an experience that has no other name in their body except danger. And if you are the one who chases, here is something for you too. Because you are not innocent in this cycle. Not in the sense of blame, but in the sense that your pursuit and their withdrawal are connected more deeply than either of you probably realizes. The more you reach towards someone who is wired to pull away, the more their nervous system registers the relationship as threatening. And the more they pull away, the more your fear of abandonment activates, and the harder you reach. You are not two broken people. You are two frightened people whose protective strategies are directly triggering each other's deepest wounds. Psychologists who study what is called the pursue-withdraw cycle describe it as both partners trying to survive, but each person's survival strategy making the other person less safe. One person demands more closeness to ease their fear of abandonment. The other increases distance to ease their fear of being consumed. And neither one of them realizes that what looks like opposition is actually the same wound, just pointing in different directions. And there is one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about. The pulling away often begins long before the relationship ends. Research on relationship disengagement has found that emotional withdrawal frequently precedes physical separation by months, sometimes years. The signs are subtle and easy to miss. Conversations become logistical. Physical affection becomes less frequent, then perfunctory, then absent. A partner stops sharing their inner world, their hopes, their fears, the small things that used to find their way into texts and late-night conversations. They are physically present, but they are mentally already somewhere else. And the tragedy of it is that by the time most people notice, the distance has been building for a very long time. So what do you do with all of this? The honest answer is that there is no simple fix, but there is a starting place, and it is this. You stop making it personal, not because what you're experiencing doesn't hurt, it does, but because the moment you understand that withdrawal is not a verdict on your worth, something shifts. You stop fighting the symptom and start seeing the system. You stop asking, why won't they let me in? And start understanding that letting people in has never felt safe for them, and that is a wound that existed long before you. Researchers who study what is called earned secure attachment, the process by which people who were once insecurely attached develop the ability to truly receive love, have found something remarkable. It does not require a perfect upbringing. It does not require a childhood that went differently. It requires meaningful relational experiences, usually in the form of therapy, a long-term relationship with someone consistently safe, or both. Which means that this is not a permanent sentence. The brain is not fixed. The patterns are not forever. Attachment is, research now tells us, a spectrum, a dynamic living thing, shaped by life experience, and capable of changing. But here's what that means practically. You cannot love someone into healing. Not by loving harder, not by being more patient than any human being should reasonably have to be, not by making yourself smaller, so they feel less threatened. The healing, if it comes from inside them. Your love can be the environment in which that growth becomes possible. But it cannot do the growing for them. And maybe the most important thing, the thing that I want to leave you sitting with, is this. The person who pulls away from your love is not rejecting you. They are protecting themselves from something they cannot yet name. They are running from a version of pain that is older than your relationship, and deeper than anything you did or didn't do. And knowing that will not make the loneliness easier to carry. But it might make it easier to carry without turning it against yourself. Because you showed up. You loved well. That was never the problem. And wherever this takes you, whether toward understanding them better, or toward understanding yourself better, or toward making a harder decision about what you need, that love was not wasted.